Hi, I'm Indy Young. I'm going to take you on a little tour of the kind of work that I do when I am coming through a transcript for concepts and writing summaries. So join me on this little adventure. It will probably take a while, so you may not watch the whole thing, but it will give you a good understanding of what's involved. So first, let me share my screen. And I have already prepared a transcript here. I've already read through the transcript of a deep listening session and highlighted the things that feel like they are leading to depth. Those are the types of things that I might want to take a look at as my concepts. And what I'm going to have to do is untangle them and then possibly summarize them if I want to use them as elements or concepts for the mental model diagram that I would create out of all the transcripts in this particular study. To introduce the study, it was organized by Andrew Herndon, and it is a study about what went through people's minds as they were making decisions about eating out at restaurants during the COVID pandemic of 2020. So let's get started. First thing I do is I will go here and create a new sheet for this particular one. I just want to show you how I get started. I'm going to name it. This happens to be participant number 62. I go in here and put some headings in. And just boldface those headings and do the view so that we can see that first row. The ID happens to be this one. And I'm just going to take it down maybe about so many rows. I usually actually just delete the rest of the rows in here because otherwise it's just too hard to scroll up and down. Generally, one transcript will have between 40 and 120 concepts. Let's delete these. Bye-bye. And now you can see the scroll bar is a lot bigger and it's a little easier to handle. So these are just silly logistic things. Gonna make these a little bit wider. And the only other silly logistic thing that I've got to do is highlight everything. You can use any sort of data sheet you want for this, but it annoys me to have things like sit on the bottom like a spreadsheet. And I also like to have things wrapped so I can see them because I need to be considering them. Okay, so let's get started. And here's the beginning of this transcript. I'm actually gonna, since I've already read it, ignore the things that aren't highlighted. It's important to read these things first so that you understand what's in there. If I hadn't already highlighted these things, I would be doing that right now. So I'm gonna grab this first thing and just start pasting it in here. As I go, I'm gonna mark it as, yeah, I grabbed it. So this is saying, so this is a group decision, it wasn't just mine. You know what I want to do also, I forgot. I'm gonna stick my face over here so you can see me up here. And it wasn't my decision. Actually, they own a boat. So this is context setting, scene setting. They own a boat. So I wouldn't normally grab it. It's not depth, but it's going to describe what's going to happen here. So since we were in a boat, there weren't a lot of choices. It was just, hey, do we want to go to a restaurant or do we not? Or is it too nerve-wracking to do that sort of thing? So let me take that over here. In fact, this comment about it was a group decision, it wasn't just mine. You know, don't know that it's that important, but I guess I'll keep it there. I was tempted to get rid of it. But what's going on here? What are some verbs? So some of the things that I would write here first might be some verbs. But decide, discuss, agree. Discuss and agree, I think, are better than decide because it shows that it's a group going on, or at least more than just one person making the decision. And so, yeah, the rest of it might show up in the supporting details. So just, as a background, there's a certain format that I follow when I'm writing a summary. It goes verb first, and then the key point. And then supporting details. And I follow this recipe, this format, so that number one, we're not talking about nouns. Nouns get us into biothreat. They also let us curate and do subconscious bias around that. So the verb helps us get out of that, but the verb also helps us develop cognitive empathy with this person. I'm putting myself in this person's shoes. Also, it's all in first person present tense, which allows me later, when I read it out loud, to be that person. That's important for cognitive empathy. Second of all, I write summaries so that it's easier later when I'm doing the process of trying to find patterns, to be comparing things in a way that I don't have to re-understand what was meant here. Okay, I'm just going to drag this thing off, and it can actually, I don't know, for the purposes of this, I'll have it sit up here so that you can see that that's the summary. Let's try it. So here, so I'm trying to form, there's going to be a lot of ways to form a summary, trying to form a summary around the word agree. And I want that word nerve-wracking in here because, oops, nerve-wracking, how does that happen? I don't even understand this. I already set it to be high. Okay. Nerve-wracking is an important standout word, memorable word. So we want so what I've got here, what I want is the verb to be really key. Maybe discuss is better. She's not saying that she's discussing. And that boat thing and not a lot of choices is just kind of background. I'm not using it, so I might take it out of this quote. Or maybe I should use it. Look, it even lost the wrap. Maybe I should use it in the supporting detail. So it was more of, do you want to do this or not? It wasn't a decision about which restaurant. It was more like, are you up for this? If going to a restaurant during the pandemic is too nerve-wracking. I'm going to put that forward. So discuss as a group whether we want to. Now she says do this. We don't have to be slaves to the way she says it. Go to a rest. Or if it's too nerve-wracking, or if it's too nerve-wracking during. Okay, I think that's fairly good. Boat. Does boat belong in there? Maybe I'll change if to whether the way it reads. I just read it again in my head. I'll leave that. This is inner thinking. This is what they're all they're thinking about. Discuss, maybe I'll switch it back. Yeah. Try to agree. Are they trying? No, they're just agreeing. I think I'm going to stick with that. Okay, let's go on to the next one. We made a reservation. That's all statement of fact. We knew that they had outdoor seating, more statement of fact. We confirmed all of that. The confirming is also explanation. But it's an interesting background bit of supporting detail for the next sentence, which is when we arrived, it was very clear that while people, in fact, had masks, maybe I should zoom this in so people can see it better. There were a lot of people inside. There was a wait outside. The patio was packed. Okay, so I'm going to take this and stick it over here. I'm stopping there because I think the next bit, it didn't feel like things were distanced properly, is more of a different concept here. So I'm gonna put a little break in between there. So wait a minute. Now everything that I grabbed here, and maybe I should, can I zoom in on this? Yeah, that might be a little bit more readable for the recording. So here we are. We called, we made a reservation. We knew that they had outdoor seating. We confirmed it. When we arrived, it was clear that, well, there's a way outside. So really it's all statement of fact. Here it is, it's clear. Didn't feel like things were distanced properly. And it turned out our reservation was for inside, not outside. Okay, you know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this. As an emotional reaction, it's implied. I'm going a little further with this because the first part of it was really just the scene description. Really, oh, I know, I highlighted it before I copied it. Copy that. Okay, now I can put it in here. All right, so here we made the reservation, blah, 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 blah. But the thing is that it didn't feel like things were distanced properly. That's the emotional reaction. And since I'm zoomed in, things are hopping around. So I'm going to make it so it doesn't hop. Excuse me. So feel. So what's the implied emotion here? Is it surprise or dismay, right? That's what I would be formally putting over here in this comments thing. Maybe even amazed or shocked. Sometimes what I do is I go look for other words. So CNVL, Center for Nonviolent. Nope, that's Center for Nonviolent Communication. All right, fine. There we go. And they have this nifty little feelings inventory where it's kind of helpful to look at. These are like tense, anxious, distressed. They're disgruntled, displeased. No, they're not that. They're not angry. They're not disconnected or confused. That's sad. Yeah, it's a little bit closer to distressed, maybe, but you can also go to the thesaurus, any one that you want, and say, like, what was that word that I was thinking? Wait, over here, shocked, right? Just look for appalled, astonished. That might be a good word. And that's where the amaze comes from. So many ads. Overwhelmed, shocked, confounded, boggled, bewildered. Meh, 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 meh. Good Lord. Yeah, just close that. So feel. I'm just going to go surprised. It's not astonished. Astonished is a bigger than surprise, right? So feel surprised that the patio was packed and things weren't distanced properly. Plus our reservation was for, what did they call it? Inside, not outside. Did they say outside or outdoor? Outside. Okay. One of the things I'm trying to do here is preserve a little bit of the way that that speaker has said something so that when we're looking at this summary later, we've got a little bit of their voice there. It doesn't have to be slavish. You want it to be a clear summary. But we do want to preserve the voice a bit. These are going to show up in the windows of the towers, and we want those windows to show us what people are thinking. Okay, so let's go back to this. So we made the decision as a group that we didn't feel comfortable eating our meal inside. So instead we switched to takeout and eating lunch on the boat. On the decision process, so there's a bunch of stuff in here that I don't need. There's two ways to go about grabbing it. You could, I like to use a little bit of space in here just to indicate to myself that it's a different concept, but you don't have to do that. Don't have to be that finicky. But this is a quick way of grabbing it. So at least it's grabbed, and that means I'm going to highlight the whole darn thing. But one of the things that I do is I like to prune out the stuff to make it more clear what it's being said. We made the decision as a group that we didn't feel comfortable eating our meal inside. Oops, give me that. And then I just do a little ... where I'm snipping stuff out. We switched to takeout order. Kind of the decision, recent. Yeah, okay. We don't need that. The decision-making process is, are you comfortable? Is it safe or is it too risky? Okay, so here we're doing some inner thinking. What are some verbs that we could use? I'm just going to write the verbs over here so we're not hopping back and forth on this recording. So decide, certainly. Consider. You see the word feel comfortable in there and you think that that's an emotional reaction, but that emotional reaction is actually up on this row here. Maybe even we could change that to uncomfortable. Yeah, there we go. That's nice. That works better than surprised. Woohoo. So you can see how these things shift as we go farther. So decide or consider. I'm going to go with consider, just because it's an interesting word. Although she did not use it, she used decision. But here, consider as a group whether, and I might move as a group to the end because I want the key point right up front. Consider as a group whether we feel, and by the way, look at this, that I'm turning all of this into first person present tense. So even though she's saying we called in the past tense, it didn't feel, it didn't in the past tense. I'm pulling it up to the present tense. So I'm standing in their shoes at that moment when they pull up on the boat and they see this crazy crowded patio. So in fact, oops, I made a mistake because I was pulling her words across. Is packed and things aren't. Distance properly is, there we go, okay. So consider as a group whether we feel, we already got comfortable up a line, so we feel safe or risky. And you know what? This is actually the decision that they've made. So consider, maybe decide. Let's go back to that. Let's try again. Decide the I'm like eating there. Eating our meal inside. Do you see that? It's right here. Eating our meal inside. So I'm trying to grab words. So decide that eating our meal inside, I guess we needed that in here, feels too risky. There we go. She says too risky for us as a group. There, I put it as a group in the end. Decide that eating our meal inside feels too risky for us as a group. And then I can add some more supporting details if I want to, because the boat's kind of an interesting part of this. They took the boat to the restaurant, so which although we can eat on our boat, maybe. Huh. Okay. Something like that. There's always a bunch of different ways that you can summarize something. So let's go on to the next one. Is this an excursion you're up for, or do you feel like we should stay home kind of thing? This is actually related to that first one, agree as a group. It's just a bit more snippet in the quote. So now we've got some more words here for excursion or staying home. So agree as a group, whether we want to go to a restaurant or whether it's too nerve-wracking during a pandemic, whether that's an excursion that's too nerve-wracking, maybe. Like that. Okay, she says up for a couple of times. Since to whether we're up for. Up for. So she does that twice. Instead of want to, we're up for. There we go. And that way it's preserving a little bit of her voice. Now let's go back and turn that the other color. So skipping down to the next bit. At the beginning of the pandemic, we probably didn't see them, meaning my parents, from March until June or July, because we were trying to be very careful because they're a little bit older and we want to minimize spread. So there's some thinking about minimizing spread and being careful. It became very clear to us that this is going to be going on. And so we needed to make it a priority to have a visit. So we kind of got all on the same page. We literally grocery shopped for more than 2 weeks and basically didn't go out in public for 2 weeks before. So there's a lot in there, which might come up again. Couple of different concepts. One is the decision to actually see them, and the other is how we're going to make sure we aren't spreading anything. Okay, so I'm going to take this part here because it's one of the concepts. So I'm untangling something now. Turn that part the other color and then grab, I'm actually going to white this one out just to show you that I'm snipping it here. We tried to minimize spread. La la la. Okay, so the two concepts are, we're going to go see them, and how are we going to minimize spread? Did I get it? Oops, I forgot to turn that blue. Let me go do that. All right, so to here, Control C, and that goes here. And then over here, turn that blue, make that white, or clear, I guess I should call it. We all got on the same page what to do. All right, that's gonna be it. Let's put that over here. Now let's look at what we've got here. We've got, I didn't see them because we wanted to be careful because they're older, but wow, we really need to make a visit now, meaning June or July when they were thinking this. So now I have to turn it into present tense and I have to think about some verbs here. Prioritize might be one verb. Looking at some of the words here in this quote. Of course, decide. Make, maybe you could do the whole make it a priority, but I'm not sure it's necessary to do 3 words instead of 1. Okay, so out of these, what do we want to prioritize? Yeah, I don't think prioritize is big. I think it's just decide. Oh, even realize. Clear to us, right? So realize the pandemic will go on for a really long time. Okay, wait a minute. That's going to be supporting detail. Realize we need to visit. Is it her parents? Is that what it said? Why didn't that get copied across? I think I'm going to call it her parents. It's either in-laws or parents. Realize we need to visit my parents because why? We have not seen them since March, and this pandemic will go on for a really long time. That's why. So realize is the verb, and the key point is that we need to visit my parents, or have a visit with my parents. How about that? Need to have a visit. Whoops, there it is. With my parents. You know, maybe I should just go double check that because I can't remember it from when I was highlighting this. It was back here. My in-laws. Ha ha. By the way, the daughter is like 3 or something, just so you know the background. Okay. Okay. Whoops, in-laws. There we go. I always think it's so funny that in-laws is a word that's not the opposite of outlaws. Okay, so going back here. All right. So now, just a bunch of statements of fact about how far they are. For those visits, we do them outside my social distance because we're keeping it to a minimum. And that belongs with the second concept about minimizing spread. It's some thinking. I'm going to leave this one alone. Actually, let's go back to label these guys. Did I get this one? Yes, I did. Okay. I suspect there might be more to this because this is kind of like, this is generalized. It's not tied to a place and time. So I'm going to let it sit for a little bit before I go summarize it. There might be more here. Ooh, okay. I'm pregnant. So copy this. Yes, it is a statement of fact, but it will be some very good supporting detail. So that's definitely a factor. I don't think there's a lot of evidence yet how it impacts, but I prefer not find out. Being careful. Okay, so this is also about being careful, but it's not the same careful concept as the row above. The row above is being careful with the older in-laws. This is being careful with my pregnancy. So again, I'm going to let it sit for a little bit and keep going to see what else is coming down the pike here. All right, so nerve-wracking. Oh, here the listener asks about that earliest discussion. She's going back to this very first thing about nerve-wracking because she too saw that word nerve-wracking and thought, that's an interesting thing to find out more about. So here she's asking more about nerve-wracking. So it's a low level anxiety all the time, constant consideration. Okay, this is different than these two. So what do I want to do? I think I will try summarizing the pregnant one at least. Prefer not, although prefer is a preference, but the way that she's using it is as inner thinking to how do we want to put this? You can't start a summary with the word be. So be careful. That's not going to work because that's just too general. Be is one of those words that I just won't use. So here, prefer not to find out the impacts of COVID on my I'm changing the words around a little bit here because it's kind of implied, but prefer not to find out the impacts of COVID on my, she said personally. Let's see. This is inner thinking for sure. It's not an emotion. On my own pregnancy. By being careful, because there's not a lot of evidence yet. Okay, you can see the key point is up front, not to find out the impact of COVID on my own pregnancy. And then some supporting details. I'm being careful. There's not a lot of evidence yet. This one, if I summarize that, that's also inner thinking, although it could trend toward a guiding principle that she is using to make decisions. And it does sound that way, except that one point that she is tied to a place and a time, that we literally grocery shop more than 2 weeks out and didn't go out in public. So what I'm going to do is possibly pull this part out. Let's insert a row above. Untangle that. Control X. Put it here. Can get rid of one of these ellipses. So we kind of got on the same page. So this way, this thing is still pending. This one is inner. Well, it's actually explanation. Okay. So I'm going to undo what I just did. Because without the rest of that, it is just explanation. Here, it can be inner thinking, was like minimize maybe. Yeah, minimize the chance. She said minimize the spread. But I'm going to say chance of spreading, because later I'll understand what this means better than minimize spread. Minimize the chance of spreading COVID to my in-laws. I'm going to say our because she then says we. How do I want to summarize the literally grocery shop more than 2 weeks out and didn't basically go out in public? By not grocery shopping or going out in public for 2 weeks before seeing them. There. Minimize what? The key point, the chance of spreading COVID to our in-laws. And then a couple of supporting details like by not grocery shopping or going out in public for 2 weeks before seeing them. 3 prepositional phrases. So here is our inner thinking. What are we going to do with that last little snippet? For those visits, we do try to keep them outside and we social distance. That might actually go to another row because it's not part of the supporting detail. So what I'm going to do is stick it here and let it hang out for a bit. Might come back to it. Okay, so here, low level of anxiety all the time. Let's stick this here. Turn it blue. Constant consideration. And luckily, my husband and I, kind of without even talking, are pretty aligned about being safe, especially with the pregnancy. You know what? That might actually belong up here. Luckily, my husband and I. No, it doesn't. Okay, why? Because it's about this like constant consideration. Oops, I forgot the constant consideration as blue. And then logistics and anxiety and a small level of low level of frustration all the time. And turn that blue. It's a cautious feeling. Feels like a calculated risk that we, okay, so it's a cautious feeling belongs to this, but the calculated risk goes elsewhere because it's tied to that place in time, I believe, of the visit to the parents. In-laws, sorry. So it feels like a calculated risk that we even considered it. What did we? Yeah, so this was the excursion. So that's what the it is. So Control C. Now let's see if it ties up or down. It's not going to stand on its own. I need to get earbuds that don't itch my ears. I'm so itchy. Okay, am I going crazy? Can I stay in this house another day? They have outdoor seating. Versus if we take it up, it's that group decision thing up here. Okay, I am going to take this part out. Delete so that it's a little clearer. It was just like, are you up for it or not? It's a calculated decision that could belong there, or calculated risk. Yeah, I think it belongs up here. So I am going to put some ellipses and stick it there. Nice. And we've got some more vocabulary. Can we put the vocabulary in the summary or does it need it? Feels like a calculated risk. Let's see, it's nerve-wracking. I think that's going to be overburdening that summary. It's already fairly clear, so that's it. And it's okay to just park that thing there. It doesn't all have to be represented. So now we've got the low level anxiety, constant consideration. Husband and I are, even without talking about it, pretty aligned, especially about the pregnancy, logistics, anxiety, low level frustration. It's a cautious feeling. What was that question again? That was having conversations with your husband. So this is pretty generalized. Okay, so now one thing about using the word feel is when you're summarizing an emotional reaction, like this one, we're feeling uncomfortable. When you use the word feel, you have to have an emotion right after it. It can't be feel like or feel that. Because those are opinions or preferences. Those are not emotions. So here, what is it that we're feeling? Anxiety. We could say feel low level of anxiety, but I like to just put that emotion there. I feel anxiety. You can say constantly after that. Feel anxiety, or maybe anxious. Now, could we say anxious and cautious? You could, but let's keep it simple. Feel anxious constantly, oops, is that, yeah, because that's the word she used, about logistics, safety logistics, because she's a safe, especially with the pregnancy. And then she's got that, luckily my husband and I are aligned about it. Is that a separate, do I feel lucky? I don't know that she's like, oh yeah, God, I feel so lucky that we're aligned on it without even talking about it. And it does show up again later. So let's say, oh, no, let's just leave it. Gonna leave it. Emotional reaction. This thing we're leaving the husband and I being aligned, because that might come up later. Because I know it does come up later and it might get moved over there. So am I gonna go crazy if I have to stay in the house another day, versus is it gonna feel safe to us? This, and go make it blue. There's social distancing. Are they observing COVID? Do they have outdoor seating? We haven't eaten inside of a restaurant since the beginning of the pandemic. Okay, and here's the point where I'm getting confused with another one that I just was doing a few hours ago. I know that there are these points about outdoor seating. Was that in this one or in the other one? Okay, deciding it feels too risky. We're uncomfortable that the patio is packed. Yeah, that was that other one that I was looking at a couple hours ago. So yeah, that doesn't belong with this. Okay, wait a minute. What verbs? Can we do a verb that works for all of this? Is there any more that I can grab from over here? Safest thing is just staying home and not exposing myself. Does that fit with here? Yeah, kind of, because like here I am at home going crazy, or here I am out in a restaurant exposing myself. This is that calculated risk thing. So let me go back up there. Yeah. Okay, so that's the place and time. This is the generalized version of it. Trade off, maybe. Or that's actually trade, probably. Consider. Make sure. What other verbs could we use here? Help me. There's got to be a word for trade-off. Go to that thesaurus with all the ads. Hello, can you respond to me? Off. Nope. Balance, maybe. How about that? Balance. There we go. I didn't even see that word there, but just the act of looking helps me get verbs in my head. I like balance better. she did not give us a verb to use, so we have to come up with a verb ourselves. So balance staying home and not exposing myself versus going crazy. And I'm going to flip them because going crazy is kind of fun. Balance going crazy if I have to stay in the house another day versus exposing myself. Beautiful. Wow, that's much more powerful. Okay. At a place, at a restaurant. Now, what are the things? That feels safe. With social distancing, outdoor seating. Okay, there we go. We packed it all in. Balance, going crazy if I have to stay home or stay in the house another day versus exposing myself at a restaurant that feels safe with social distancing and outdoor seating. Yeah. Okay. Let's go on. And appreciate the additional information about COVID being kind of unlikely to survive and expose people on surfaces. So it's kind of relief there. I think that's a little bit of an implied emotion. Yeah, and that just stands on its own. By the way, this is inner thinking. We have to write something there or else it won't inherit what's above it because there's a gap. Thank you, spreadsheet. Okay, so let's just use her verb. So we could say feel appreciation or appreciate. Those are both ways of saying the emotional reaction. Although appreciate as a verb could also be representing inner thinking. Here, maybe I don't want to use that. I was going to say here it means an emotion, but then you could get confused 3 weeks from now when you read this thing. So instead, I'm going to make sure that we know it's an emotion. So feel relief, knowing that COVID is unlikely. How about learning that COVID is unlikely to survive on surfaces, which means I don't have to continue wiping down groceries. How many of us have thought that as well or felt it? So now she goes off and starts talking about takeout. So let's see what's going on. We feel pretty safe regarding takeout because someone just knocks on your door, drops off our food. There's no physical interaction. Feels like any physical proximity interaction with somebody, definitely without a mask, but even with a mask feels risky. That's different. Ooh, interesting. Okay, we've got all sorts of little tiny things here that she hasn't expanded on, but they're actually worth grabbing. Of course. Yeah, that's right. Okay, feel pretty safe. Where did it go? Oh, right there. Okay. Sometimes I get lost. And then there's this one. And that one goes there. Let's see what's next, just in case. Safest would be stay home. We already heard that. Okay. This is how she feels. That has to do with that last sentence that we just copied over there. And then next part, go get your groceries because I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And next. Okay, so this is like a little guiding principle going on here. That's interesting. This is how she is making decisions. Okay, again, her kid is like 3, so that's when she says go for a walk with your kid. That's what's going on contextually. Okay, so here, I'm going to try doing this one first. And I do think it's a guiding principle. But how is she using it? She's just explaining it. Yeah, so this is me having a lot of discussions with my husband about what we're comfortable with. So maybe that's part of it too. I love discussions. We're just both pretty conservative. Is it safe to eat inside a restaurant? No. Okay, so interesting. I'm gonna throw this. Okay, so that turns that into something, whereas before it was just like bald statement of fact to her. But here it's tying it to some inner thinking or some development of guiding principles alongside her husband. Okay, so let me see where this thing fits because it's part of that same paragraph. Yeah, here. Nice. It kind of ties in there as an alternative. So feel safe with takeout, comma, where somebody drops our food off with no physical interaction as opposed to, how did she say it? Eating out inside of a restaurant. Now the prepositions might be misplaced here. What I'm trying to do is not write the entire thing over again. I want to make it clear and scintillating, crystal, easily understood 3 weeks from now or 3 months from now or even 3 years from now, because you're going to be seeing this again and again and again. So feel safe with takeout, where somebody drops, that's supposed to be an S, our food off with no physical interaction as opposed to eating out inside of, yeah, I think it works okay. The prepositions aren't that misplaced. Emotional reaction. Generalized though, not pinned to a place and a time, which is okay. It's just easier for people to speak about their inner thinking when we're talking them through a particular place and time. Here she's talking about her inner thinking, her emotional reaction, in a generalized format, kind of generalized across all the times they were deciding about getting takeout or delivery. Yeah, they call it takeout. Okay. So this next thing, physical proximity, interaction, feels risky. Safest would be stay home. Next is go get your groceries because you have to. Next is like, oh yeah, could we like maybe go see our family or have a meal outside or go for a walk? In the beginning, it was like, what are we comfortable with? What am I comfortable with? We definitely had a lot of discussions. So how about discuss with my husband? Level. She's calling them levels. The levels of risk we are comfortable with. Like getting groceries or which I don't have to choose all the details. So which detail is kind of outstanding and memorable? See your family, have a meal outside, go for a walk with your kid. That's more memorable. Or go for a walk with a kid. I just don't want to include all 4 details because it just makes the summary long and it's unnecessary. I just want to remember this. So getting groceries or going for a walk with my kid. How about hour? But not, I don't know if we need this. Interacting with somebody. How about when? Because she uses that when interacting with somebody feels so risky. I know she didn't say so, but it works really well in the summary. Discuss with my husband the levels of risk we're comfortable with, like getting groceries or going for a walk with our kid, when interacting with somebody, even with a mask, feels so risky. There we go. Nifty. Okay, yeah, you may see that this is a 4-line long summary, but we could get it shorter if we wanted to. I think it's okay. This is inner thinking. There are at least 5 different ways that we could summarize each one of these things. So I'm not too picky about exactly what. I'm just picky about that formula so that it makes it easier later. All right, so what's next? Talk through a scenario. This is also generalized across a bunch of different scenarios. Make sure, hey, you're comfortable. Oh, whoops, read the next sentence and her daughter's only 1 at the time. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so this other concept is she going to be running around if there's other children there? Okay, so that's another concept. Can you go grab that? Okay, now, did I skip one? I think I did skip one. That's this one. Just trying to keep it to a minimum. Okay. The other one, talking through a scenario. So discuss with my husband the levels of risk we are comfortable with. You know what? This actually belongs with that. Oops, let go. Come here. Control X, because it can't stand on its own. Otherwise, it's just like explainy. And an explanation, anything at surface doesn't belong in this sheet. And an explanation is a surface level item. So is a preference. So is an opinion. So is a statement of fact, or the explanation of the context, or something said with passive behavior, or a generalization in certain areas. I am using some of the generalizations. Okay, it's got to be inner thinking, emotional reaction, or guiding principle. And that's what I'm looking for. And this is what the listener was looking for when she was conducting this listening session. Okay, so here, run around with other children. Like, she can go to the playground, but we've got to keep a distance from the other children. How on earth does she do that? Okay. And I did keep that our daughter is turning 2, even though, yeah, it's a statement of fact, but it helps me understand the context of this particular quote. It's probably not going to make it into the summary. Like, we would not, okay, we wouldn't get rid of this. Take her to Chuck E. Cheese, which is a kids' restaurant. Even if they had a patio, because the expectation is she would get up and run around. This is getting to be a pretty long quote because it's all one concept so far, which is we're not going to take our daughter certain places. She could randomly interact with people that we don't know. We're not seeing our friends. We have to be careful with our family. We don't need exposure from random. Okay, let's stop here with this one. Go summarize this. Lots of good vocabulary in here that we can use. What should our verbs be? We could say avoid, consider. So, oops. Make sure, maybe. We're avoiding the random interaction. That's what we're avoiding. We're considering our daughter, or the expectation. And we're also making sure, what are we making sure of? That we keep a distance from other children. Okay, another question here. Whenever I see make sure come up as an idea, that sometimes indicates that it might be a guiding principle. Right? Guiding principle is we're going to keep her apart from other kids. We're going to keep her from interacting with random people that we don't know. So, like, keep our 2-year-old daughter from randomly interacting with people that we don't know. I don't think we need randomly in here. I'm going to say keep. It's a good verb, huh? Keep our 2-year-old daughter from interacting with people we don't know. Or how about just using 2-year-old as supporting detail? Keep our daughter from interacting with people that we don't know because she is 2 and running around. That's twice that she said it. Run around 3 times. So we got to have the word run around in here. and likely to run around. Is it only at restaurants? How about in public or when we're out, maybe? Okay. Because she is 2 and likely to run around. Here we are. Let 2-year-olds be 2-year-olds. Okay, so here we're not really seeing our friends. We're trying to be really careful with our family. Both statements of fact that might be helpful for supporting detail. By the way, this is, I'm going to say it's a guiding principle. Okay. It helps them make decisions in various scenarios. We don't need any exposure from random people for no good reason. Okay. And buy groceries. So, for example, my daughter has not been in a store since the pandemic started. There's no reason. Luckily, we're 2 parents and we can coordinate. So we haven't had her with us. But that's pretty much a necessity. And that has lasted so long. Risk tolerance is changing. I realize we can't just stay home, but we're going to go crazy. Okay, so we're circling back to that going crazy thing. So how does all this want to fit together? My daughter has not been in a store. There's no reason. Okay, so what is happening here is that she's going slightly off the topic of her daughter about not seeing friends and being careful with our family. But this is back with respect to the daughter. So I'm going to grab this. And she is admitting, wow, we're so lucky to have 2 of us here and 1 of her. What if we add it here? What happens? Statement of fact that she hasn't been in the store. There's no reason. Luckily, we're 2 parents and we can coordinate. What if we take this? I think the no reason part works there, but, or not been in the store part works there, but the no reason. We can coordinate. That's still about the daughter. You know what? I think it works this way. I'm just taking that middle part out. Okay, so yeah. Keep our daughter from interacting with people that we don't know because she's too unlikely to run around while we are out, and we can, since we're 2 parents, we can coordinate. Okay, word about that word and. We can't and the key verb, keep our daughter and coordinate. It has to be anding within the prepositions of the supporting details. So let's just make sure that, so because is our prepositional phrase, the first one, because she's 2 and likely. So she is 2 and likely, that's part of the prepositional phrase. When we are out is another prepositional phrase, doesn't have an and since we are 2 parents, where's that and? That we don't know. Because we are 2 parents. Since is also another way of saying because. because she's 2, and because I'll even change it, right? And because, so we've got keep our daughter because X and because Y. So that's good. Okay, so we're not really seeing our friends. We're trying to be careful with family. We don't need exposure from random people for no good reason. There's no reason. This is sounding guiding principle-ish. And the verb I would use here is avoid. Might not be enough, but certainly avoid exposure from random people for no good reason, because we are very careful with our family. Okay. Maybe I should leave that trying to be. Okay. And let's go back here. All right. So now this is full circle back to the whole crazy. Our willingness to take risks has gotten a little higher. We're about to go crazy. Okay, so let me wander back up to that crazy thing and see if it's there or if it's something that we do separately. So Balance going crazy. If I have to stay in the house another day versus exposing myself. No, I think it's a separate thing. Where are we? There we go. So put it down here, because that one's just about like the restaurant. And this one is kind of a statement of fact that we're letting our risk tolerance, our willingness to take risk get higher to stave off the crazies. What verbs? And also, is there anything in the next little section? Because the listener asks about going crazy. Outside, I see. Okay, right. Yeah, okay, that's an explanation of that. So let's see what we can do. What little verbs can we take advantage of here? Change, adjust, realize. Okay, how about realize? That's a nice one because she uses it. Can't just stay home all the time. That's not what we're realizing. Going back to adjust or change. I can't say higher, right? Elevate. Change our willingness to take risks because we can't just stay home all the time. Change has to have an N in it. No, not an M, an N. There we go. Okay, so now it sounds like an explanation. It's some inner thinking. That realization is inner thinking. How about we do use realize? We can change our willingness to take risks. We higher. How about we just say it the way she did? Realize our willingness to take risks has gotten higher. Wait, what's higher or lower? All right, got a little higher. Okay, yeah. Okay, there we have it. Now back to this. What have we got next? And we are at least a quarter of the way through. And we were at only 16 rows, or 15 if you subtract the row in the top. Even 14 because there's one row in there that we haven't used yet. To interact with somebody outside of a normal bubble, don't know what their behavior or risk tolerance is. Okay, I'm taking that part. I think that goes with the last part of this paragraph. At a restaurant, you don't know what the person at the next table is doing. And if somebody said you can never go to a restaurant and eat inside again, it'd be like, okay, I'll stick to takeout. It doesn't feel like something that's life-sustaining to me. That's a totally different topic. Okay. What about within our bubble, we know very well that my parents and husband's parents are making it a priority. Okay, so let me make this clear. Take this. This might go with that little row that we skipped way up here. So let's go up here and find that unknown one. Sort of, kind of, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So this is about feeling. Or make sure. Yeah, what about make sure? What else do they say? What verbs would we use? We know prioritize. No, that's that same old thing, right? Although we could use it for a different thing, like how about instead of prioritizing family, it's prioritize how about act? It does say something later in this transcript about the whole respect for other people. Let me leave this one blank because we do come back to it later. And that's the lovely part about having marked up this transcript already is I know what's coming. Or I kind of remember vaguely what's coming. So I can make decisions like that. All right, so a bit of trust in the public. That, I think, goes with the sentence above it. And the next bit is that thing like whatever restaurants, even though I used to go, is not that big of a deal if they told me never could go again. Okay. Let's just make sure there's not more right down here before I go back and summarize. Everybody's different in a society where everybody thinks as an individual. Everybody's risk tolerance is different. I'm conservative. That means others aren't as conservative with their risk tolerance. So I don't think I should be around people that are willing to. How does that impact these two rows? It's kind of related to this one. I think I'll go ahead and summarize this one because it kind of sticks out by itself. So feel, the word isn't comfortable. What's the emotion? I'm like, I'm taking it. Yeah, sure. I'm fine with it. Fine is not. Let's go look at this. CNVC is fine. Where would we do? Serene. I'm not giddy or expectant. Safe. Secure. Comfortable. Content. There we are. That's the word we're after. Okay, so let's go put content in here. I think the kitty cat is going to come up for a visit, maybe. Yeah. Might mean we have to stop soon. Okay, so feel content with take out even if somebody. No, really content with take out even though. How about this? Because restaurants eating inside not life sustaining. Look at that word. You know, we want to pick out the words that are memorable. So even though it's something we did regularly before the pandemic. Oops. Kitty. All right. Just going to let us keep working. So this is emotional. I can't even spell anymore. My hands are all over the keyboard. Maybe it is time to quit. Let's keep going for just a little bit more. I wanted to get halfway through. Okay, so to interact with somebody that is outside of my normal bubble is taking a risk because I don't know what their behavior tolerance is. I have to trust them in public. Everybody's risk tolerance is different. I don't think I should be around people that are willing or have higher risk tolerance. Okay, I'm going to take this and put it up there, but not all of it. I'm actually going to take out her little opinion here about us being in an individualistic society. Here's your guiding principle. So, okay, everybody is different and everybody's risk tolerance is different. And all building that case for like I'm not going out where I don't know. what that other person is like. And I think I should be around other people who are willing to. Okay. And here's the kitty cat, your tail. Yes. He's saying it is time to quit soon. Yeah. She's a good girl. Right. So how do we summarize this? I think it might be a guiding principle, but let's think about some verbs here. So take risk, trust, interact. I don't think that's a verb that we want to use. Maybe avoid. Yes. Everybody's different. Avoid. I shouldn't be around. So I think avoid might be a really good word. And also avoid, like make sure, is one of those that like indicates it's a guiding principle. So wonderful. We've got a guiding principle. There we go. So avoid being around people outside my bubble. Like at a restaurant, because everybody's risk tolerance is different. And so there, the and is part of the because, right? And they may not be, and others may not be as conservative as I am. Okay. The beautiful meat of this whole story comes a little bit later, where she starts explaining how normally she is not conservative. She's always the outgoing one. She's bubbly. She talks to anybody, and just being pregnant during a pandemic has really filled her with frustration. And what did she say? She's tired of it, exhaustion, because that's not her personality. She doesn't like having to think about the germs all the time. So we are going to leave that for another time. And I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you for listening.